Welcome to Great White Retro. I'm Gord Fessick. This is my friend Bill. Good day, eh? Our topic today is a VIC-20 that we just picked up here from Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. We're going to get it cleaned up and see if we can get it working like brand new. Let's get her done.
So the first Commodore machine I ever get for this series is a VIC-20 from Milwaukee, of all places. I happened to be in the neighborhood that summer, and Bill here was willing to sell me his. It came with a manual, a stock power supply, an RF modulator. It was a 1983 model here. I wish I knew what store that was from.
And underneath, yeah, there we go. There's something you don't see every day.
What's that?
Made in U.S.A. I'll flip that around later, but it says Made in U.S.A.
What's U.S.A.? What is that?
Manufacturing jokes aside, this VIC-20 is in pretty good shape. I was not about to trust that stock power supply though, so I ordered basically a new brick that worked for the Commodore 64. It also works on the newer VIC-20s. I got no video at first though trying to use the RF modulator. And this was a similar problem to what I had with the Atari 400 at first. Now, I don't know if it's my adapter cable, or if it's the monitor not supporting it quite right, or the signal quality not being ideal. I have no idea at this point, although I did notice that if I switched between channels, I would get a glimmer of a picture, and then it would stop working again. At this point, I wasn't going to waste any more time, and I ordered some cables from 8-Bit Classics. This is the standard audio-video cable for a VIC-20. That cable also works with a TI 994A and a Commodore 64, and I get very good, well, sort of for a VIC-20 anyway. You might not notice it on screen, but there is something called dot crawl going up from the bottom, scrolling up. It does distort the video a lot. This isn't something I saw on the Apple IIe or on the Atari 400, so I'm wondering if my problem is either the cable I got from 8-Bit Classics, or if it's the VIC-20 itself. Yeah, and that's pretty scratchy video port there too. I'm going to want to clean that up, maybe just with some deoxit, or I might replace it entirely. It seems to have settled out now. Well, not bad. We actually have, well, it's a working Commodore VIC-20, I'll give it that. You know, typical 3.5K free, and let's see all of the keys, see if they work. It's responding to F1. It's responding to F3. It's responding to F5. Took a couple presses. And it's responding to F7. A bit noisy, but it seems to be working. Let's see if we can get some sound out of this thing. Okay, so I typed in a very simple example program on page 70 of the lovely VIC-20 friendly computer guide, right? I used different line numbers, but it should be the same. Whoops, get back here. What am I doing? Before I actually run this test, can you tell the mistake I made in that basic program? It's not going to work at first. See if you can tell me why before I give the answer away. Let's see if this thing makes any noise. Insert sad trombone noise here. 3, 6, 8. 7, 8. That keyboard has a hard time accepting some keystrokes, and as a consequence, I mistyped that one poke command.
Typing in stuff.
Yep, that's the joy of typing in stuff, all right.
Okay.
Let's try now. Well, the sound seems to work just fine. Not bad. bad! This VIC-20, which had been stored for quite some time, seems to be in good condition. We got to get these keys cleaned up, but if it's anything like David Murray's horrible VIC-20, at least for the board type, it should be easy to clean up this keyboard, fix up the contacts, and so forth. So this is a revision 2 VIC-20. It means it has a shorter board on it, and it requires that RF shield to mount it properly in the case. I doubt I'll ever get the fancy pet VIC-20, but hey, just like David Murray's awful VIC-20, this is a revision 2 board. There's the... yeah, there we go, the 6502A. The 2 ROM chips. Another ROM. We've got the VIC right here. 2 CIA timers. The same timers, I believe, that are used on the Mockingbird for the Apple II. 2 main RAM chips and several smaller RAM chips for the video and for color RAM. Actually, the color RAM I think is there. I don't know. I'll have to look at this up. We should have a 555 timer, which we have right there. That's working. That does the reset logic. There's the big old shielded cartridge port and all of the various glue logic that we have here. Inverters, bus transceivers, and so forth. What I think I need to do is I need to clean this connector up to get better video. But what I'm hoping to do is to replace this connector here. This is the 5-pin video that's normally on the VIC-20. I'm hoping to replace this connector with a Commodore 64 version of this connector. It should have the same 5 bottom pins, but it'll have 3 additional pins exposed for Luma, Chroma, and that'll give me S-Video ability on here. There's an S-Video modification I want to do to this VIC-20 that should hopefully improve our picture a lot. I might be able to clean up some of that signal noise we saw as well. Okay, no smoke. So far, so good. Since the cable I got said it supported a TI-994A, I'm going to try out this TI-994A that I picked up earlier in the summer. I picked up an Apple IIc, and on the same day I picked up the IIc, another person was giving away this 994A. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Maybe that was why. So, oh, that is definitely a power switch. Oh, there we go. Ta-da! Press any key to begin. Maybe this thing just needed a moment to warm up. Where's the quotes? You know the usual. Hello, hello, where's break? Oh, okay, that worked. Not bad, the same cable does work better, and the picture quality is much clearer, so whatever's going wrong on the VIC-20, it appears to be specific to the VIC-20. And establishing that, we can now take this thing apart for cleaning up. I think these screws might not be the original screws for here, or very likely this machine's been opened up before. I didn't get that satisfying click you get when you try to loosen screws for the first time. But we do get these things off. The screws that hold the motherboard in place are shorter, so that's how I can tell the difference. That side panel there, I loosened one too many screws, but don't worry, I put that back on there before continuing. I didn't want to lose those extra screws there. There we go, the keyboard comes off the top part of the case. It uses the same length of screw as the motherboard screws do, so no way to confuse those. That keyboard mechanism appears to be the same keyboard mechanism that, again, David Murray had, and is also compatible with the Commodore 64. And this is the keyboard I need to clean up. Some of those contacts are not contacting very well. There's that right-hand bracket being put back on. I think I can leave it on there, at least until I need to work on the board itself. There we go. Side bracket back in place. So, lesson learned. Don't take that off until you're ready to take it off of the shield. Looking at the rest of the case, I gently removed this label. I was able to use a floss toothpick to get underneath the label to remove that without damaging it. There's just some glue on there that I'll remove. I also removed the top labels so that I could soak this in hydrogen peroxide later. Time to give this thing a proper scrub. Just like the Apple IIe and the Atari 400 before it, I give this thing a thorough scrub with good old soap and water. Try to follow up then with some alcohol and then baking soda. This one didn't need a lot of cleaning, but the cleaning it did need uncovered some problems that I'll explain in just a bit. It looks like there was some cable burns, as there were some bumps that looked like something burned on there, but really that was just reacting with the cable. When I put this thing back together and store it, I'm going to store the cables in a separate bag or something to make sure it doesn't react with the case plastic again. I use a toothbrush on those vents. Don't worry, that toothbrush is an old one. It is now just a nail brush. And then we get this thing all cleaned up. Next, I follow up with alcohol. I'm trying to get those marks off. It looks like someone spilled paint on the bottom right there of the front of that case. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I follow up also that with baking soda, just to get any remaining scuff marks or whatnot off of there. That still didn't take those marks off of there, but hey, take a look at the bottom. I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but the surrounding plastic is a little yellowed compared to where the label was. And we can use that as a control for our retrobrighting. And there are those cable burns I mentioned earlier. I'm using a nail file to gently smooth those out. You can still see them if you go and look for them, but at least it's a little better to the touch. There we go. And here's my Retrobright tank that I used for the 2E. Quite successful last time, and I'm using the same UV lights and really hot water and hydrogen peroxide. I boiled some water to bring down there, so that water is about 100 C, right? Pretty toasty. I only top it up with just enough water to cover the parts, and these parts are pretty shallow, so I didn't need much more beyond these 2 potfuls. Look at that. And there we go, 35%. I was able to get this from Walmart.com, so if you want to try this with some stronger peroxide and you don't have a salon nearby, definitely order from those guys. Give it a good stir up, make sure it's all there. I've also got some rocks on those case pieces. I'll come back down here in an hour to move them around. Finally, let's get that towel up there so we don't kill our vision when we come down here. And on come the lights. While that was going on, I paid my attention over to the keyboard. This is a modern key puller used on a Logitech gaming keyboard. If you're careful, this can work on a vintage PC as well. There we are. Off comes the enter key. All of those springs are the same except for that spring for the spacebar, so I'll keep that separate. And there we are. There are all the other keys. I will clean these keys separate. Next comes taking apart the board so that I can get to those contacts and try to clean those up. Those are lots and lots and lots of screws. Also, that tape that would hold the cables in place, I saved that, but I'll replace it with a new piece of tape when I put this thing back together for good. It took a while, but we got all of these dumb screws off. Although, really, I should have taken the leads off of the shift lock before I took all the screws out. Now it's harder to remove that connection. Nah. Oh well, lesson learned for next time. At least now when I get a Commodore 64, I'll know how to take it apart properly. There we go. Off comes that board, and there's all those plungers. So I'm not going to use any cleaning solution at all on those. I'll just use some cotton swabs, dry swabs, to wipe those off later on. Okay, Star, do you really have to inspect all of these plungers? Here, you want to inspect this too? I guess she didn't. Anyway, some alcohol on those pads, and then nothing on those plungers. I really didn't want to ruin those. Those pads, they do have a light resistance, about 150 ohms, but it's not zero. So I just touch a couple here to make sure that they're at least doing some kind of contact. And it goes anywhere from 130 to 180 ohms, so it's not bad. Now I'm using some dry cotton swabs to sweep off the tips of all of those plungers. No cleaning solution here. I would not recommend it. Okay, back goes the circuit board, and this time I've got some supports there to hold the board in place. Once I get the first couple of screws in, I'm able to take it off of those bowls. My goodness. And then I can reattach the shift lock, with hopefully not burning my fingers. I'll need some non-heat conducting pliers or something to do this properly. Fortunately, I didn't burn myself, although I did scorch the shift lock key. It still worked though, no problem. And now I start to clean these keys. I made the mistake of cleaning these with alcohol. I did a couple of test ones and they worked just fine, but as I was going through the keys, some of the symbol characters started rubbing off on the sides. The top of the keycaps were fine, it was just the symbols that started rubbing off. And it was only on a few of them. I don't know why some of them rubbed off and some of them didn't. But hey, once that was all cleaned up, I started reattaching these keys. Can you spot the mistake? Oh dear. Yep, here we go again. Don't worry, I go in here with my key puller and I fix these mistakes before going too far. And of course I took a photo of the keyboard before I took it apart, and I'm using that as a guide. Some of these springs got stuck together. In fact, I thought I lost a spring for a while. But when I realized I was one spring short, I was like, okay, I gotta have a double spring in there somewhere. Fortunately, I was able to locate it, pull out that one key, and recover my missing spring. I think I got as far as halfway through the keyboard before the storage on my iPhone ran out. I was hoping to do a key insert montage. I don't know. Anyway, this wasn't too bad. I was cleaning the keys, taking the springs apart. Meanwhile, while that was all going on, the retrobrighting was continued, and I spent some time rearranging the two case pieces just to make sure they all got full exposure to the UV light. I just flipped it around, made sure rocks weren't blocking the light to the things. So that wasn't too bad. And yeah, putting these keys back in is always satisfying once it's once they're all cleaned up. Alright, Commodore key, always gotta have that. Alright. With that done, it was 2 hours later when I retrieved the pieces from the Retrobright. Take a look on the bottom there. Where the label is compared to the rest of the bottom of the case, it is a perfect match. I'm just gonna say it's good. Also, the label covers are a match for the rest of the case. Looks like the top and bottom are also a good match. Yep, it is all a good match. Let's try out that keyboard finally, after all that work. Look at that. All of those keys work on the first try now. Shift lock is working. Alright, we're well on our way to getting this thing fixed. So while this VIC-20 is working and is all cleaned up, I'm going to keep it apart because I've got a lot of work to do yet. I've got some parts on the way, so I can recap this, and also so that I can replace that video port with a Commodore 64 compatible S-video port. Hopefully by then we'll get some software for it as well. Until then, good day.